The movie Kung Fu Panda 2 came out in China on May 27th. Now, when this movie came out, you saw all the typical, Western type scenes where people were lining up for, forever with their kid to go and see the movie, and kids are all happy and excited and all that stuff. Except the thing is, not all people in China were happy about that. Particularly the film industry was not happy that this picture had come to China. In fact, these same group of people have previously criticized the first movie, Kung Fu Panda, and I'll tell you why. A lot of Chinese artists are calling for a boycott of this movie because they said the makeup of the movie, Kung Fu Panda, was taking a lot of Chinese culture and kidnapping it, and then, that's to use their own word, kidnapping, and then take the Chinese culture and twist it to like an Americanized version and then play it back at them, back at the audience. Basically what they're saying is that without actually using the terms, they're basically pointing out a situation of cultural imperialism that's taken place. And of course they have every right to be upset about that, and in a lot of places, this is absolutely true. I'm not so certain that this is the exact case in this movie, but it is something that very much does happen. And they're saying they're using this to take the Chinese values and the Chinese culture and twist it toward a more Western style philosophy, a more Western style attitude, which is something that a lot of people in China don't want. They want their own culture and their own ideology and way of thinking. In truth, the American media has a very long history of taking cultures, different cultures, and twisting them up, turning them into mass-marketed products for people to buy and consume, and inherently changing them and altering the cultural meaning of these things. I think back to when I was in grade 8, and the whole Latin craze had started. Ricky Martin had first come out. Started selling albums. He hadn't admitted he was gay yet. And the Macarena, that stupid Macarena dance. That came out when I was in grade 8, and I hated that dance. Anyway, I'm getting off topic here. So that's one prime example of how particularly Latin American culture was co-opted by Western media and turned into this homogenized product and then sold back to people. The Western media has a very, very bad history of doing that. This type of cultural imperialism also has its own effects on the various different countries, and I can speak from personal experience because it does have its effect here in Canada to a much, much smaller degree, but it does happen. It's largely not noticeable because our cultures aren't really that much different, but it's much more noticeable if you go to other countries. Particularly like the United States can produce many great quality TV shows for very cheaply because of the population density, and there's a market for it. It gets made. Then what they can do is they syndicate these to Latin America. Now, the price that Latin American television stations pay for these programs is nothing, absolutely nothing compared to the cost of actually writing and creating their own series and producing their own shows. So it becomes a cheaper alternative option to creating content is to just imperialist copy pasta what's happening, and all they really have to pay for is somebody to dub it, and that's really not much of an expense at all. And as a result of this cheaper programming coming in, the domestic or indigenous programming gets pushed aside and doesn't have a place in favor of these cheaper American television programs, which then has an effect on its own movie industry and its own television stations, and then their own stories don't get told and their own culture isn't displayed. And in fact, what they end up having is being saturated by American culture. Now, the Chinese version had more Chinese culture in it than the American version that we saw. It had lion dancing and shadow puppets and stuff like that, things that were more traditionally Chinese put into the movie, which is a great deal of why they were upset about it, because there was much more Chinese culture in it, homogenized, Americanized, and then fed back to them. Now, I can understand to a certain degree. No nationalist here, but the Disney company owns the trademark on the image of the red-coated RCMP officer, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, the red suit, the four-pointed hat. Disney actually owns the copyright to that image for those deadly, god-awful, Dudley Do-Right movies, which I can't imagine anybody who likes them. So I can't understand what's essentially, while of a mainly nationalist nature, is being co-opted by the Disney Corporation and made into this idiotic character. So to some degree, I can understand why the Chinese would be so upset about their culture being taken over by an American company. Another reason why the release of this movie has been so upsetting was the fact that it was released, just before Children's Day, International Children's Day, which is different in different countries, but it was only a few days before Children's Day in China. Now, Children's Day in China, as was adopted by the Chinese Communist Party in 1949, the previous Nationalist Party didn't care about children, as you could tell. Well, it was adopted to raise awareness of children's issues and to remind everybody that children are the future. You do have to take care of children because they will be the people running things someday, and that this protection of children has to go across everybody. Not like how it is here. Well, we take care of the richest kids, we get them schools, we get them stuff like that, but to the work, to hell with them. They don't even matter. We'll just shove MTV down their throats rather than giving them any of the things that they actually need. They're mad is that they're taking this thing it's not just like a communist thing to take care of kids. It's a genuine, almost spiritual quality of recognizing children are the future and paying attention to that, and it's something that's important and sacred, and then turning around and cheapening it by selling movies on it to make money. That's like the massive commercialization of Christmas. I mean, Christmas doesn't even come anywhere close to meaning what it was supposed to mean. I mean, even Thanksgiving is nowhere close to what it was supposed to mean. Not, without even mentioning all the barbarism and murder that went behind it. The Chinese, these people are mad about the commercialization of what is essentially to them a very important part of their culture and its meaning within the context of a better future for its children and where they want their society to go. It would be a shame for Children's Day to be ruined by this type of commercialization, but that's what capitalism does. Capitalism seeks to take everything that's sacred, everything that's personal, and turn it into something to make money off of it. It's not just the commercialization of children, it's the commercialization of culture, it's the commercialization of everything that's sacred. I mean, this is the inevitable result of the restoration of capitalism in China. This is what capitalism brings to the world, and unfortunately, the Chinese people are going to have to realize this is what happens as a result of restoring capitalism in what was previously a socialist country.